Hello, this is Annette with Project Refine Life. Welcome to my channel. Today I am here with day 5 of 5 days, 5 VRs, a VR to Peekaboo Rose. And this VR is, or this series of VRs, is all about responding to VRs that you didn't have time to catch up with. Or you didn't have time to respond to. So I've really had a good time doing this, and there are still so many VRs that I do want to respond to. So who knows, there may be another 5 days, 5 VR series in the future. Now this particular VR is to Simon over at the Hermit's Cave, and it is all about tarot. Let's just go ahead and dive into the prompts because I think this is going to be a little bit lengthier than the others. The first question is your first deck and how you encountered it. These are my first 2 decks, the RWS and the astrology reading cards. Yoga and tarot just kind of go hand in hand, seriously, I think. You know, I just kept experiencing these readings and using these cards. And at one retreat, they used the Carolyn Miss archetypes deck. So after that retreat, I walked into my friend's shop. She had a beautiful crystal shop and she sold books and tarot decks. And I said, hey, I want a tarot deck. I want this other deck and it has red on the back. And she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But I still don't have the Carolyn Miss deck, but I have other archetype decks that work very well for me. So I don't really think that I'm interested in that one anymore. But these are the 2 that I picked up. So these were my first 2 purchases. So this is the Rider-Waite-Smith, and these are the, the plaid backs. And this is the only tarot deck that I had for years and years. And when she showed me this deck, I was like, I don't like it. But she said, Annette, you have to try this deck. You'll learn so much better if you learn from this deck because this is what so many of the decks out there are based on. So I said, okay, I trust you. I'll go ahead and go with that particular deck. So I bought this deck and I also bought the astrology reading cards because I wanted to learn more about astrology. So let me just share this with you real quick. I didn't get the Carolyn Miss deck. And as you can see, look, you see this little sleeve thing? When I started buying decks, I always kept these little plastic sleeve things. And see, I still have it. Well, this deck, I never really got along too well with the images. I don't know, maybe it was just a little bit above me, but it's a good deck. I mean, the bases are all here when it comes to astrology. I still don't really pull this deck. As you can see, I edge the sides just so that I can keep them all, in their perspective place. I think I got one out of order there. I'll put it back together later. Okay, so anywho, this is one of the decks that I got. The astrology reading cards really didn't teach me too much about astrology because I really wasn't interested in the cards. I didn't like them. And then this deck right here. Okay, I worked with this deck for years and I would pull one card. And then I would go on YouTube and I'm going to try to find this lady's videos. I would watch her videos as she spoke about the cards. She would take each card and just speak on them. And it really did help. I didn't have any books. I just used the little white book that came along with this deck. And I would just write down the meanings. I wasn't even doing it like just to pull in energy for the day or anything like that. I was just doing it to get to know the cards. So then I started looking things up on YouTube, like looking up the actual meanings, and then I started getting really brave and I would pull 3 cards and try to understand it. But in the meantime, between pulling one card and the 3, I saw this other guy on YouTube and he's like, just lay the cards out, lay 3 down and try to form a story. Try to look at the scene and try to form a story, which was good advice, but I really wasn't learning the meanings of the cards still. So I went back to watching videos, looking up information on YouTube and referring to the little white book. I did this for years, guys, years. And I never really connected with this deck. Although when I get a deck and I have to think about the meaning because it's a little bit deeper of a deck or something, and I just kind of have that moment, these are the images that I still see to this day, these images. And then I go, oh, okay, yeah, I remember, I got it. So those were my first decks right there. Question number 2, your last deck and how your taste have changed since your first. Well, we all know that the first deck that I got, because I just told you, I didn't like it. But this was the last deck that I got, the Somnia Tarot. And this deck is, wow, it's really beautiful. It's really deep. And as you can see, the images are completely different than that first tarot deck. And it has so much depth, has so much more depth than, like, and I'm not saying that the RWS doesn't have depth. I'm just saying, like, as far as emotions are concerned. So now I really look for decks that bring out like this spark in me, that find or tap into different emotions. So I don't know if it's really about my taste, having a specific taste now compared to when I started. I think it's just that I look for something that makes me light up inside when I look for a deck to get. It really has to kind of call to me now. And I have found that when I buy a deck just based on, well, I really don't have a deck like that and that would kind of fit that niche, that doesn't work for me. It has to build like this little bit of a fire to me. And you're going to see as I share decks along the way that I don't really have a specific style either. Now, as far as like this deck being like this photographic deck, the Super Lunaris taught me a big lesson, because the Super Lunaris, I kept saying, I don't like that type of art, or I don't like that type of photography with like those colors in there. I don't know what you call it, what kind of art that's referred to, but I love the diversity in the deck. So when I got that deck in, I immediately had a connection with the deck. Like, it was so deep. It was so good. So that taught me, like, don't think that it's not your style. Everything's your style. It's just about the connection that you feel with it. So that was my biggest lesson when it comes to ordering decks or finding decks, that I have to feel a connection with it. Why tarot? Okay, as you know, I had had a deck for a while, and slowly things started creeping up as far as working and finding more decks to work with. And this deck right here, the Mystical Shaman, was one of the decks that kind of turned me into like looking into more. This was not like my first other purchase after the RWS, but this deck. Now, I know this is a deck by Colleen Baron-Reid, and you know, a lot of people have issue with her, but that's not the reason that I bought this deck. The reason that I bought this deck was not for her. It was for Alberto and Marcela Lobos, because I had already taken the 9 rites of the Munay-Ki, and I was also looking at the Rite of the Womb. So when this deck came up and I saw their names, I think I heard about it through Alberto, where he was talking about, you know, coming together with somebody to make a deck. This deck was like, oh my gosh, it's the 9 rites of the Munay-Ki. He's a shaman. He talks about all of these beautiful concepts, and I was kind of sad to see that it kind of got wrapped up in this, but I still work with this deck to bring those elements into what I'm working with or what I'm teaching as well. So this is how I kind of stepped in a little bit more into tarot and oracle. And at first it was mostly oracle because, you know, I had that experience with the RWS. Now, I started collecting a few more decks, and I can't remember which ones they were, but it was very difficult for me to find tarot decks that I liked, because I was finding that as far as if you have any type of melanated skin, there wasn't a huge selection for me to connect with. It just wasn't available. But the big shift came for me in 2020. I did find some that I agreed on, like with the Crow Tarot and the Brady Tarot and There was a few others out there that, and it was mostly animal decks because that's where I found the most connection. But I brought this deck out because this is the Ancient Ritual Postures Oracle deck. And in 2020, everybody came home. So I had my kids home, I had my husband home, and it was not easy for me to do the work that I was doing before. I was tapping in to postures. I was journeying through drumming. I was doing deep, deep meditations, and my focus was broken. It's like somebody took a twig and went, like seriously, it was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So I started reaching for the decks that I had, and I thought, okay, I need to tap in differently now. I can't do it the way that I was doing it anymore because the house is busy. Everybody's home, everybody's moving, and it's nobody's fault. Like this is just what it is. So how can you use these tools to tap in easier? And it was it was amazing how easy it was to tap in to these concepts and to what I was doing before through the tarot and through oracle decks. I mean, I would just put on my drumming music. So before I was like, okay, I got to put on my drumming music and then I'm going to use these decks and I'm going to tap in. And it was amazing. It was really amazing. And then things like this right here, like the Herb Crafters, I've talked about this deck so many times. This was one of the decks I was like, oh my goodness, yes, okay, this is my language. I understand this. This really shifted my perspective on tarot and oracle and how to connect. So why tarot? Because tapping in is effortless. It really is. But I was kind of put off prior to that time. I was kind of like, I was told like within some of the people that I knew as well, not that people's opinion really ever mattered to me, but I was always told by other people, don't start using tarot and oracle because you're going to break your connection with spirit and it's going to be harder for you to tap in than before because you're going to lose it with that. This will hinder your ability. And that's not true. That's not true. These decks are so deep and they actually help you tap in to things that maybe you hadn't thought about or maybe you hadn't considered or a different aspect because all of these decks are so different. And just like this, the Brady Tarot, oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite decks. I love how deep this is. So that's why tarot, because it was extremely easy to tap into spirit and to all the things that I needed to tap into and still do the work that I was doing. Tarot pet peeves. This has nothing to do with a pet peeve. I'm just showing you decks at this point. But tarot pet peeves. When I get a deck in, and it comes in this beautiful box, but the cards are side by side, I don't like it. Uh-oh, they're backwards. You know what? I looked at this deck earlier and I thought, why is everything so like mixed up? I don't know what I did because I don't read reversals. But let me get back. Squirrel. When I get a deck and they are separated, I do not like that. If I came to teach yoga and my body was disconnected, like the top of my body was disconnected from the bottom, I would never be able to tap in and to do what I needed to do because the connection would have been lost, right? To me, and I'm not saying that this is the way it is, I'm just saying that to me, that is the feeling that I get when I get a deck and it is in two separate little areas, like one's on this side and one's on that side. Some of my favorite decks come this way, but I don't like it. That's one of my pet peeves. I will quickly take that deck out of its container and, put it in something else and work with it to kind of connect it because all of these things, all of these cards are energy. And one card feeds into the next, and energetically they charge each other. It's like your chakras, right? Like they're all in a line. And if one of them is off, the other are off too. So to me, it's kind of the same feeling. They have to be together. That is one of my biggest pet peeves. The other pet peeve, like that's physically for the decks. And I'm going to try not to get too deep into this, but the other pet peeve that I have is gatekeeping. Gatekeeping. Oh my gosh, guys. Like, I do things my way, you do things your way. No way is better, and no way is the absolute perfect way to do it. And I just think sometimes within the tarot community, you can hear the sigh, too much of that gatekeeping idea, and even this talk about collecting and culling. Oh my God, it drives me bonkers. It really does. I don't know if you've ever heard the story about the lady who cooked pot roast because she was taught by her mother how to cook this pot roast, and she would always cut the ends off of the pot roast. And somebody asked her for her recipe and said, "Why do you cut the ends off the pot roast?" And she said, "You know what? I don't know. I got the recipe from my mom. So let me call my mom." So she called her mom and said, "Hey mom, why do we cut the ends off the pot roast?" And she said, "Well, that's because the pan wasn't big enough to put the whole pot roast in. That was the only cooking vessel that I had. So I cut the ends off the pot roast." Does that mean you're supposed to do it? No. But her mom was working with what she had. That's the way she learned. So that's how the daughter learned. And the daughter kept doing it just because that's the way her mom did it. Listen, guys, there's no right or wrong way. And if that pot roast, if the daughter thought, okay, you know what? I do have a big enough vessel to cook this thing in, but I don't need to worry about it because I like it. I like cutting the ends off the pot roast. Then that works for her. And maybe her kids will learn that way too. But it's not right and it's not wrong. It doesn't matter. It didn't affect the pot roast, right? You're still eating the pot roast. It was still good. Guys, we need to calm down with the collecting, with the culling, and telling people that they've got too much. It's it's just too much. If you want to get rid of decks, get rid of decks. If you don't want to buy decks, don't buy decks. But don't pass judgment on other people because that's what they want to do. Like, seriously, it's just too much. And by the way, this is the Ritual Tarot by Tiara May. And as you can see, that kind of got put into here, to the deck itself because I'm just showing cards as I talk. All right, that's enough about that conversation right there. I will say one more thing about that whole situation about collecting and calling. You know, I take my invitations into your home extremely personal, and I am so honored that you called me into your home. I really am, and I try to be respectful when you invite me into your home. I would never go into somebody's house and tell them, why do you have all that coffee? You know, all you need is one. If somebody invites me over to their house for coffee, I would never say that because it's none of my business. And I'm glad to have the choices when I'm there visiting with Mary. But if Susie comes over to my house and then starts talking to me about why do you have those 2 coffees and then you have that 1 Starbucks coffee, isn't that too much? At that point, I unsubscribe to that friendship. I'm done with that friendship because I don't want somebody coming into my house and telling me what I should or should not be doing. She doesn't know my finances and she doesn't know my taste in coffees. And as you can see from all these different types of decks, I like the variety. As long as it jives with my soul, I'm okay, and I'm not putting myself in any financial bind to have these things. You know, you do you and I'll do me. It's as simple as that. Okay, your next prompt is favorite tarot spread. Well, for me, that is a 3-card spread. And I'm just going to show you here with the 3 tarot cards. But for me, I use an oracle deck and this is most of the time, an oracle deck as my main focus, and then the tarot cards to just draw light or a complete message as to how I should react, what I should be doing. So the main energy is here, and then we've got the 2 cards over there, and that kind of like blends it all together. So that for me is the main way to do my spreads, is a 3-card spread. My preferred method, although right here the Serpent Fire is a Thoth-based deck, is the Rider-Waite-Smith, because that's the deck that I learned on, and that's the style that I'm used to. Although working with a Thoth itself has been challenging for me, I feel more comfortable with the Rider-Waite-Smith. But these cards, like working with the Serpent Fire, it's a Thoth-based deck, and I really enjoy the card meanings with the Thoth. So who's to say it'll stay that way forever, but that's the way it is for now. All right, our next question is number 7, tarot rituals. I just did a whole video, and I will link it up in the corner for you, but I did a whole video on my daily practice, which is another VR and in this series. But I will, just to give you a quick synopsis of that, I clear and cleanse my energy. I call in whoever I'm going to be working with on that day, and then I call in my ancestors to assist me. I use a crystal, I use a mala, I use mudras, I use a cushion, and I sit and I set up my cloth and I light a candle and I open my space, and I try to be very respectful of that space, because remember, for me, it's a connection. I'm not just pulling cards and, oh, this is upside down. I'm so sorry. This is the Gentle Tarot, one of my, or the very favorite deck in my entire deck collection. For me, it is a connection with spirit. It is an easy way for me to tap in and to speak with spirit and to understand what they're trying to tell me. And so it's a ritual. For me, it is an actual ritual, and I treat it with respect. And I say thank you at the end of my readings, and I close out my space. Now, I do read differently now, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But, all right, question number 8, how do you use tarot? Introspection or divination? Okay, all of it. All of it. I use it. It's so versatile and it's so easy to use. I love using tarot and oracle because, like I said, and I keep saying it over and over again through this video, it is an easy way to tap in. Like so easy. I wish I had realized earlier into my journey into all of these things how simple it was, but I guess it all came in its due time. I learned the other ways of doing things, and then this is just like beautiful, like the icing on the cake. It's just gorgeous to work with. So I work with it to get insight into my day, my classes, what I need to think about. I use it to kind of look into the future, look into the past, ancestor work, journeying, I mean, soul retrieval. It's an amazing, amazing tool. Do I need any of it? No, I already know how to do the work, but it's an amazing tool to have, and it's just fantastic. So easy and wonderful to tap into. Okay, your Significator card and why you feel it represents you. You know, I can't say that I actually have like a specific Significator card. See, I can't even say it right. Can you can you hear it? This is the animal, or hold on a second, I'm sorry. The Story Medicine Tarot, Animal Woman, 2nd edition. I can't say that I have a specific card, but I will say that 2 of the cards that have always really shown up for me consistently, one is the Tower and the other is the High Priestess. And I think that says a lot because, you know, this work is all really about like tearing down your blocks and getting rid of the crap you don't need and rebuilding and restructuring and really calling upon your inner self, your inner knowledge, your wisdom, your connection with spirit, and guiding yourself through. So I think, that the fact that those show up again and again for me, I've had to I've had to redo myself so many times. Like, seriously, throughout my lifetime, I've had to just keep rebuilding, keep restructuring, and it's okay. It comes with the growth. I heard, what was it? There was a video I heard today, and she was saying, and I'll put her link or something, that she kept getting the full and that it was okay with her. And I was like, yeah, I totally get that. Like, I understand, like, trying to just walk into something and being okay with not knowing all the answers, and having that growth as as an awakening for you. So guys, this has been an amazing experience for me to be working with the tarot and oracle. It has been wonderful. Number 10, my most expensive tarot acquisition. Guys, by far, it has been this deck right here. This is why is this all confused too? Okay. The Mysteries of the Black Madonna Tarot deck. Oh, my little thing came off. I have to put that back on there. But this deck is the most expensive deck that I've ever purchased. And in addition to the expense of the deck, then you have to pay for the DHL shipping. And because of the distance from where she's at to where I'm at, it is extremely pricing, but I don't regret it at all. I have this one plus the Mysteries of Mary. This one was more expensive than the Mysteries of Mary. She's coming out with another deck. And you know what? I'll do it again. I will do it again because this is an extremely special deck. And again, it just taps into another part of me, another area of my life that maybe I wouldn't have been able to tap into. I don't know, but extremely special deck, and I really, really, really love it. Now we're getting into the unicorn deck question, the deck that is so hard to find. All right. So there is an oracle deck that I have really wanted for quite some time, and you know what? Sometimes I take a really long time to go ahead and purchase the things that I want. Sometimes I think about it a little bit too much, and then by the time that I go, okay, yeah, I want it, then it's all gone. So the oracle deck that I want is Mercury, Salt, and Sulfur oracle deck, which is the companion deck to the Solara Occulto Tarot. I cannot find that oracle deck. Like, seriously, I can't. I think I found it a couple times, but I was unwilling to pay the price that they were asking because it was just through the roof. And I was just, I didn't do it. And then a couple of times I saw the oracle deck come out, and I was like a day late and a dollar short. It's kind of a situation. But I understand that this creator is in the process of reworking both this deck plus the oracle deck to match the energy or the overall look, kind of reconstructing them to match the energy of this one, the Crimson Astaria deck. And this deck is ultra blingy, gorgeous, gorgeous deck by the same creator. So at that point, I'll have to decide, do I really want that oracle deck so bad that I'm going to repurchase this so that those can match? Does it even matter? Will they look okay? I'm not quite sure. That's something to be considered at that point in time. But that's the deal. That's my unicorn deck. And other than that, I don't really have one that, like, I think, oh my goodness, I really want that deck and I can't sleep. No, it's not like that. I mean, I'll get it if I get it, and if I don't, it's okay. What is the most important lesson that tarot has taught you? This is question number 12. The most important lesson is that my practice, my personal spiritual practice, this is the energy archaeology deck, which is amazing. My personal spiritual practice does not need to look the way that I thought that it did. That's what the tarot has taught me, that it can be interrupted, that it can be different than what I thought my spiritual practice would look like, and that I can use these other tools to facilitate me dropping into these different states of being and to access this different information. Like this deck right here, the energy archaeology deck, is a perfect example of that, because this deck really gets me in tune with, like, when I'm teaching, I'm going to do a separate video, but when I'm teaching or when I have a client who's coming in for Reiki, or I'm teaching and I want to really focus in on one particular issue for, like, let's say there's one student and I can see that she's really having a hard time, or she mentioned something to me, then I might want to tap in on a different level. So instead of having like that one-on-one session with her or doing some healing for her, I can really direct the energy and the way that I direct the class and the things that I speak on through things like this. Like this deck will help me tune into all of that. So tarot has taught me that there's different ways to tap into your spiritual practice, and it doesn't have to look the way you may have thought that it needed to. And there are so many different ways to access this information, and it is just incredible. Final question, and again, I'm just sharing decks with you guys as I'm moving through this. And the final question is a tarot dinner. Who are your party guests? You know, I had to think about this a little bit, and it is one guest of honor plus 2 other guests, dead or alive. Now, when I think of having a tarot dinner party, you know what? Seriously, everything is so serious. Seriously, everything is so serious that I would really want to have conversations with people that I think will both enlighten the conversation, have a way to be soft and deep and giggle and laugh and be silly. And all of that is to say that my guest of honor would definitely be Mari from Mari in the Sky, because I love the way that she reacts and the way that she talks with people and the way that she is. And I put that, oh, here it is right here. I'm so sorry. Mari from the Gentle Tarot. I love her demeanor, and I love how loving every interview. I've never seen her say a cross word or being, you know, like everything from her just shines through so lovingly. And she almost has this like shyness to her in a sense. And I just love her personality. I think she is a beautiful human. I can see in her eyes, just looking at the videos that she creates, that she just has this beautiful glow and love to her. So I would love to have her as a guest of honor. Now, the 2 other guests, this is for a tarot dinner party. So remember, I want to just be able to sling cards and eat fun things and laugh and giggle. So the 2 other guests that I would bring in, now this deck that I'm working with here is the Jade Oracle. The 2 other guests that I would bring in would be my beautiful friend Tara from Kittens, Weights, and Tarot, because I already know and we already have beautiful and deep, wonderful conversations just about every single week. And also Lisa Pepez. Lisa has this beautiful, infectious personality where she can just brighten up a room and she can laugh and giggle and have a good time and speak deeply all at the same time. And I just think, oh my goodness, we could just bring out some tea and have a bunch of fun foods and bring out tarot decks and light candles and put on music in the background, and I just think it would be just such, I just got this whole vision of it before I made this video. So, Mari and Lisa, ever an opportunity and you're in Arizona, Tara and I would love to have like a dinner party with you guys. I know she would love it as much as I would. So that is it, guys. That is it for my lengthy video to all of these all about tarot questions. I appreciate you staying with me and listening to me go on and on about all of these things about tarot and about me and how it affects me and what it's done for me. So thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. I wish you a beautiful, beautiful day from my heart to yours. I will see you later.